What's up, guys? This is Kyurem from the Trinity of Lift, and today I bring all of you guys a pretty cool deck profile of my Madolche Shaddoll deck. So, a little backstory for you all. I was browsing around YouTube the other week, and I somehow stumbled upon a duel video pitting Satellar Knights against Madolche Shaddoll. And I had to take a double take at the title. Like, I had to make sure I was reading it correctly, that it said Madolche Shaddoll deck, and I'm like, I was just thinking that was so crazy. Like, that's a really crazy idea. Like, I never had the thought of ever considering making a Madolche Shaddoll deck. But after seeing that video and seeing how the deck kind of synergizes together fairly well, I decided to actually take it upon myself and try and make my own list of it, make my own version, and then bring it all to you guys. So, let's get right into this deck profile. Starting off, we have the three Madolche Angeli. This deck is more favoring for the Madolche side, as a lot of our power plays will come from the Madolche monsters. So, because of that, we do have to run the 3 Angeli, because she is a combo piece, as well as she can get us to any one of our Madolches whenever we do need it. So we have to run the 3 Angeli. Moving on, we have the 2 Madolche Mageline. Now, although she is pretty much a staple at 3 for any generic Madolche deck, the reason why I cut her down to 2 in this deck is because due to how the Shaddolls work, you will be deck thinning them very quickly. And because of that, we do have quite a few draw cards in the form of Shaddoll Beast and a few other consistency cards that will be digging through our deck pretty fast. So we will end up drawing into our combo pieces much more quickly than, say, a pure Madolche deck. So I thought that you didn't really need the 3rd Mageline, so I decided to cut it because we will be drawing into our stuff fairly quick. So we do not need the 3rd Mageline, so I cut it to 2. Next up, we have the 2 Madolche Hootcakes. Hootcake is here because he is, much like Angeli, a very powerful card and a big power play card within this deck. Due to how the Shaddolls will work and how they'll be constantly sending themselves to grave for their effects, you'll usually have Hootcakes live pretty much all the time. And Hootcakes will usually be grabbing our Messengelato, and the Messengelato will then be getting us another search. So that'll Hootcakes himself will be getting us our pluses pretty darn quick. And the reason why I like 2 rather than something like 3 is because 2 is a good number for me, as it doesn't clog as much as 3 would, as well as you want to have Hootcakes within the deck. So if you draw into 1, that's fine, as it'll be a rare occurrence when you draw into multiples of Hootcakes. So that's why I really didn't find the need for a 3rd, and I just found 2 just fine. Moving on, we have the 1 Messengelato. Messengelato is obviously here for our spell and trap card searching, and you don't want to draw him, so I decided to cut him down to 1 because you really don't need to search with him all that much within this deck, as there are a few other cards that we can also see to make other plays rather than just keep trying to search with Messengelato. So I did cut him to 1, and I will say that I am liking him at 1 because I will almost never draw into him now, which is great because you do not want to draw into him now. And again, like I said, searching for your Madolche spells and traps aren't as essential as if they would be in a pure Madolche deck. So we only run 1 Messengelato. Next up, for the final Madolche, we do have the 1 Madolche Mufwe. Now, I know Mufwe is a very important combo piece to a lot of our combos, but the reason why I cut it to 1 is because within this deck, because we do run the Shaddolls now, there are a few other cards that we do want to run over multiple Mufwe. Namely because if we draw into a Mufwe and a Shaddoll, we cannot do anything with the Mufwe. So I wanted to avoid that situation as much as possible. So I only have 1 for when we do need it. We can search it obviously with Mageline. And if for some odd reason we need another level 3 for our combos, we can always get it with Angeli. And in general, I haven't missed any multiple copies of Mufwe, and I'm just happy with the 1. Moving on to the Shaddoll aspect now of our deck, we do have the 2 Shaddoll Beast, because he is our plus guy, he is our plus machine, he is what gets us into our deck faster, and he is what lets us draw into our combos. Next, we have the 2 Shaddoll Skomata. He is our deck thinner. He will get us through our Shaddoll lineup fairly quick and allow us to deck thin for our Madolche combos just that much easier. Next up, for the last few Shaddolls, we have the 1 Dragon for general back row removal, or whenever we have to stick something for a 1900 attack. We have the one Shaddoll Hedgehog to search out any of our Shaddoll fusions whenever we might need it, and also it can help us search out our Shaddoll Beasts whenever we do want to get that free pluses whenever we have a fusion in hand or whatnot. And then finally, for the last Shaddoll, we have the one Shaddoll Falco because recurring stuff from our grave is always nice. Moving on to the other monsters that we do run 3 Effect Veiler. Now, there are a couple reasons why I have 3 Effect Veiler in this deck. Firstly, obviously because he does negate effects, and having that effect negation can really help us slow down our opponent, and it's really powerful against the Necros matchup when they try to Shula you, or Brionac you, or something like that, so it's always good to have Veiler just for those situations. Another thing that he provides is that he is a light monster. So Veiler being a light monster allows us to go into our Nephilim plays just that much easier, as naturally if we were just strictly running Madolches and Shaddoll monsters, we would not have a light monster. So I have Veiler in here as sort of a generic light monster that we can run in almost every deck, and he does provide that utility of effect negation and being a light attribute. Another fun thing that he is that he is a level 1 tuner, so he can also help us go into our synchros if we ever do have to. So again, Veiler just is very versatile in this deck, and we have to run him at 3. Finally, for the last monster, I run something pretty cool in the form of Chronomaly Crystal Bones. Now, a lot of you might not know what he does, so I will read him off to you guys. If your opponent controls a monster and you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. When you do, you can special summon one Chronomaly monster from your hand or graveyard, except Chronomaly Crystal Bones. Now, first off, the second effect, disregard it. It's completely irrelevant. You will never use the second effect in this deck. But the first effect is actually pretty important because he is another combo piece with Angeli, as what essentially Mufoi usually does for the Mufoi-Angeli combo is Mufoi just provides another level 3 so that we can go into our Levier. What Crystal Bones also does is provide us, like Mufoi, a free level 3. If you guys can kind of see how the combo might work with this guy, he actually can be a replacement for Mufoi, and because he can special summon himself, so you don't require your normal summon, and then you can use that said normal summon for Angeli. So again, this is another combo piece, excuse me, for our Madolche plays. And another good thing that he provides for the deck is that rather than how Mufoi is a little less versatile, Crystal Bones is more versatile in the sense that he is also a light attribute monster. So again, he also gives us light fodder for our Nephilim plays whenever we do need it. So I do run the one Crystal Bones. So that is it for the monsters. Moving on to the spells, we start off with the 2 Shaddoll Fusion and the 2 El Shaddoll Fusion. This obviously is not a dedicated Shaddoll deck, so we do not need 3 and 3 of the fusions, which is usually the standard for any Shaddoll deck. And again, so we only have the 2 because this is not a dedicated Shaddoll deck. And I will say this, the Shaddoll Fusion that you do want to abuse the most is Shaddoll Fusion. The reason being is that since Shaddoll Fusion does have that ability to deck thin you out from your deck, you really want to try and resolve it when your opponent has an extra deck monster so that you can deck thin. Again, that is one of the biggest things that I will say when playing this deck. You want to deck thin your Shadolls ASAP because you want to have access to your Madolches very early. You want to draw into your combos extremely fast. So having the deck thinning potential is always good. And then we have the 2 El Shadolls, obviously, because El Shaddoll Fusion provides so many different shenanigans like missing targets and whatnot. So we do have these 4 fusions. Next for the spells, we have 3 Mystical Space Typhoon. This is obviously here for any floodgates that might still be lingering around in the format, like the single copy of Vanities, the one skill drain, whatnot. We don't want those to be on the field, so we have the MSTs for that, as well as general back row removal, as things like what Yosenju, Ritual Beasts, and Burning Abyss now too. They all run a good amount of traps now, so we do want to have the MSTs to help stop that back row. Next up for another 3 up spell that we run a 3 Upstart Goblin because that 37 card deck, bro, really, it's consistent. You need it 3 Upstart in my opinion. Next up we have the 2 Instant Fusion because Instant Fusion is here as another combo piece for our Angeli plays, as it does combo very well, as it can provide us with a free level 3 accompanying our Angeli so that we can go off. Another thing Instant Fusion does is it acts sort of like Chronomaly Crystal Bones in the sense that it is a very versatile card in that we can use it with either aspect of our deck, either the Madolches or the Shadolls, and we usually can get some sort of play off. So we do have the Instant Fusions for that versatility. Next up, for the final couple spells, we have a lot of one-ofs. We have the 1 Foolish Burial as another sending outlet for our Shaddoll cards. We have the 1 Madolche Shaddoll and the 1 Madolche Ticket. These are obviously our Messenger Lotto search targets, and they help us get And they help us get our Madolche cards going, and they help give us that recurring combo if we ever do have the Chateau on field. So we have these two cards, obviously, for our Madolches. Then finally, we have the one Book of Moon and the one Raigeki. Rest in peace, Snatch Steel. You were fun while you lasted, but you're gone now. So we have the one book and the one Raigeki as our remaining power spells. So that is it for the spells, and now we have 3 traps to round off the main deck. We start off with 2 Sinister Shadow Games. I have never believed that I would ever play this card again in any sort of Shaddoll deck. But after thinking about it a little bit, I found that Sinister Shadow Games does a lot of work within this deck, as firstly, it helps you deck thin your Shadolls from your deck, which again, like I've said, like a broken record already by now, you really want to get your Shadolls out of your deck as soon as possible. So Sinister will help get you those Shadolls out. And another cool thing that Sinister can help you do is it can help you disrupt your opponent's plays on their own turn. Like, if you have a set Skomata, you can flip this guy up, send maybe like a Falco or a Beast, and then flip your own Skomata, destroying something on your opponent's field. And it really slows down your opponent on their own turn, which is pretty darn cool. Not to mention that whatever you send with the whatever you send from your deck with the Sinister will also get an effect, so that's always beneficial. So we have the 2 Sinister Shadow Games. And then finally, for the last 40th card, we do have the one Mirror Force. We have the Mirror Force in here just for generic defense and whenever we might need it, because Mirror Force is a pretty darn good card now. Alright, moving on to the extra deck. We start off with 2 El Shaddoll Shekinaga. Obviously, because we have a pretty darn large pool of Earth monsters, we do have to play the 2 Shekinaga because we will have access to it the most out of all our El Shaddolls, and its effect negation is pretty good. And then we have, for our last 2 El Shaddolls, we have our 2 El Shaddoll Nephilims. Obviously, because El Shaddoll Nephilim is our powerhouse card, she is our Cataster, essentially, and she is huge at 2,800 attacks. So we have to run our 2 El Shaddoll Nephilim. I should note right now that I do not run El Shaddoll Window because in my testing, I found Window to be hurting my own deck more than my opponent. So I decided to cut it entirely so I don't get slowed down by it. Now then, for our instant fusion targets, we start off with the 1 Panzer Dragon, the 1 Fusionist, and the 1 Carbonala Warrior. Fusionist and Carbonala Warrior are pretty self-explanatory. They're here for our easy access rank 3 and rank 4s, as well as they are both Earth, so they also can act as Shekinaga fusion fodder whenever we do need it. And then we have the 1 Panzer Dragon, because firstly, it is a light. So again, I should mention, it is a Nephilim fodder target, as well as Panzer Dragon is pretty cool in the sense that it turns our instant fusions into simple removal cards. As what Panzer Dragon does read is that if this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can target 1 card on the field and destroy that target. So, if we for some odd reason have no use for our instant fusions, we can always go into Panzer Dragon and to just blow up a card on the field, which is pretty simple and pretty helpful. So that is it for our fusion monsters. Moving on to our synchros, we start off with 1 Goyo Guardian. This is here, obviously, for whenever we do have a Falco and a level 4 monster on field. And a thing that I have noticed is that I will be going into Goyo quite a bit, as if we do end up doing our generic Mufoi Angeli or something Angeli combo to get a Tiramisu and a Levier, we possibly will have the chance to have a ticket on board, which will get us a free level 4. And then if we have a Falco, we can make Goyo right from there. And there's a lot of weird, quirky ways you can make Goyo in this deck. And having Goyo to steal our opponent's monsters and use them for fodder for something, either our fusions, our synchros, or our XYZs, is always helpful. And that's why we run the 1 Goyo Guardian. And then for the other 1 synchro, we do run the 1 Armades, because we can make Armades probably the most often, I guess you could say, because we can have Valor and a level 4, or Falco and a level 3, which we do have quite a bit of. So we do have the Armades for those situations, and Armades is always nice, as it can poke through things like Necros of Valkyrius, it can poke through our opponent's back row without worrying, and we can attack stuff like face-down Shadolls, and they don't get their effects. So having Armades to really stop our opponent like that is always helpful. Moving on to the XYZs, we start off with the girl herself. We have the 2 Madolche Queen Tiara Misus. This is a Madolche deck at its core, so we should really run the boss monster of the deck, really. I cannot really say much more. She is just phenomenal. She is a -2 for your opponent in and of herself. She is just she's fantastic. I'm running out of adjectives to really say about her, really. She's just that good, and you should run her at 2. Moving along, we have the 2 combo piece XYZs that we have to run. We have the 2 Levier. Originally, I did test this deck at 1 Levier, but the issue I kept running into is that after one Levier, if we usually successfully go through our combo, we can recycle it, the whole combo, and do it again next turn. And it really makes the combo kind of lame if you cannot do it, if you don't have the Levier. So I decided to put the second one in just so we can recur the combo at least a second time if we ever do need it. Now we have 2 more rank 4s in the extra deck, starting off with the one Downward Magician for general piercing whenever we want. We can overlay this over Levier so that we're not stuck with a little Levier on our board. And again, another cool thing that we can do in this deck is we can overlay straight for Downward Magician at times, because all the Shaddolls are spellcasters, and our Madolche is also a spellcaster, so we can use our level 4 Shadolls and our Madolches to sometimes make Downward Magician herself just by itself, really. So having that access is always cool. And then finally, for the last one, we have one Daigusto Emerald, because now this is pretty ironic when I say that even though we will deck in our Shadolls fairly quick and we want to do that quickly, there are times when we actually might want them back in deck when we want to abuse our Shaddoll fusions more. So we do have our Emerald to recycle our Shadolls, as well as maybe recycle our one of Madolche's like Madolche Shaddoll whenever we want to maybe search him again. So we have the Emerald for all of those situations. Well then, alright guys, that concludes my Madolche Shaddoll deck profile. Please let me know what you guys think of this pretty nifty deck down in the comment section below. And as always, this is Kyurem from the Trinity of Lift, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.